Welcome everyone, it's time for a birth story. And in part 1, my friend Lori shares with you her preparations for home birth, her faith as a Christian, and the role of me as a doula. Enjoy!
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Lucy, to having me.
You're most welcome. I'm so good to have you here. And honestly, for me, it was just so memorable and so special to be able to accompany you during your birth and the whole time beyond, before. And I just love to hear your story and share it also with people here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm very honored to be a part of this ministry of yours. I love it. I call it a ministry because to me I was being ministered to the whole time. And so I'm very excited to share my story.
That's awesome. Maybe you should tell everyone first how we met, no? Because it was a bit of a special story also. It was through a mutual friend. I didn't even have a lot of marketing back then. I think I didn't even have a website. It was all just the very start of my business. And then a friend of ours, she kind of connected us because she heard, and maybe you share how she knew that you needed to do that.
Yes, it was really fun because at the time when I fell pregnant with my second baby, we were not in Germany. Just for the people that don't know us, we're both based in Germany, Europe. And my family and I were in South Africa when I was pregnant for the whole of the pregnancy almost. And I am connected to a few friends here in Germany with the church that we attend to. So I was chatting with them and I was asking them, we are planning to move back to Germany to a certain time and I need now a birth team because the Lord put it on my heart that I really wanted to do a home birth. So this mutual friend of ours said, I don't know midwives, but I do know a doula, so let me send you your number. And then that's how we connected, and it was just wonderful from the get-go, I can tell.
Maybe I should also share with you guys what a doula is. At first, it's still a bit new, especially here in Europe. In the US, it's a bit more common already. So in general, the word doula comes, it's an old Greek word, and it means servant. So we are actually serving families in the time throughout pregnancy, birth, and then also postpartum. But there's a difference to midwives. As you know, midwives also serve women throughout that time, but their focus is really on medical things. And I, as a doula, I do not measure your belly, I don't take your blood. Also throughout birth, midwives are so well equipped to really make sure that everything is medically safe. And that's not really my part of the job. Instead, me as a doula, so the focus really is on the emotional side of everything, of pregnancy, of birth, and of postpartum, because this is all such a transformational time in the lives of a woman and also in the time of the whole family. I really guide families throughout all this change, and I inform them because there are so many birth options. Also, most people only think about hospital births, but as you're going to hear really soon, this wasn't Louis' choice. And I just inform people of their different choices for birth, also for birth prep courses, all kinds of resources that they might need. I share that with them. Also, like baby wearing consultants or even first aid for postnatal depression. Yeah, that's all also side of the doula work. And in general, I'm just a constant who is there really from the beginning to the end. I share the joys. I also share the fears of the expectant families, and I give them practical tools that helped many women before and that are probably going to help many women after us. So it's really passing on knowledge also from generations to generations, and especially from women to women. And that really looks like relaxation, breathing techniques, also as a preparation for the birth itself. Hands-on massages, always important, especially also in the postpartum time when there's just so much going on, such a vulnerable time, and then a woman really wants to be held herself and needs to be held herself. And that's so important to also give her something. So hard to give and give and give to your baby, to your family, without ever filling up the cup, kind of. And that's something that we as doulas are also there for. And yeah, this work is often joyous, but also we as doulas, we know about all the heavy sides of pregnancy. And we know that maybe also in comparison to family or friends, you don't have to keep up your happy face all the time, but you can really share how you feel. You can really talk about all the emotions, like everything. And even for like the worst days, even if a family loses a child, that's something where we as doulas are also helping and supporting. So it's not just a sparkly job, I'd say, although at times it definitely is, and that's the beauty of it as well. But yeah, we're kind of holding it all, the beautiful and the not so beautiful days. Yeah, and also like grief and forgiveness work is definitely part of it. But maybe back to your birth story and special beginning of the birth that it had, because it wasn't like, it was a bit earlier than we all expected, right?
Yeah, so just I want to piggyback on something that you said earlier, because you mentioned that the midwives are for the safety aspect as well during birth. And I, from my perspective, can say yes, for sure they are, but they are more around the physical safety, whereas you really took the responsibility of making as the whole room as emotional safe as possible. So I do believe that both components are crucial during a birth. It's not something that you can ever be prepared for, even if you do all the courses in the world, all the, mental preparation. I think when it comes to the actual birth, it is crucial to have an environment where you feel safe, and not just physically safe, but also seen and heard and taken care of emotionally. So that's what I want to highlight, because that was one of the main factors that even my husband said Lucy was the game changer. So coming back to the actual birth, I was very blessed. I always had wonderful pregnancies with no complications. I need to say, I love to be pregnant. It's not everybody's choice to be super joyful during pregnancy, because obviously it's a lot of weight on your body and stuff, and the emotions go up and down. But I truly embody the whole pregnancy thing. I love it. And then when we came back to Germany, as I said, we were in Cape Town for around about 6 months. So the whole of my first 2 trimesters, basically, I was away from the country, and I came for the last trimester. That's when we also physically met for the first time. I mean, we had calls before on Zoom as well. So she goes beyond, guys. She really tries to connect with the person and the family, and tries to understand like where you're at emotionally and all of that. And she does that even online. So even if you're not in Germany, I don't think that's a problem. So we connected online, and then finally we met the first time. And then I think just 2 weeks after that, we just fell sick. All of us, our family got COVID, and I was in my 35th week of pregnancy. Oh, excuse me, 33 weeks. Okay, so 33 weeks, and I felt already the weight of the baby, because it was my second baby, so my pelvic floor was a little bit, strained already. And then I just didn't feel well during the whole COVID time, because the way it manifested for me, it gave me contractions before time. And I thought at first it was the Braxton Briggs contractions, which is kind of a form of training for labor. That's what your body usually does. But in our case, it was just repetitive, and it was a lot on my body, which made my midwives also a little bit alarmed. Nevertheless, I was just choosing to be walking in peace as a Christian. I'm like, if I got this, the Lord is with me. And we just relaxed. But time came, and at 36 7 weeks, exactly that day. These contractions started early in the morning, I think like at 5-ish in the morning. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go to my shower and relax again. So that's what happened most of the times. I went to the shower and tried to relax my body, and they wouldn't stop. And the interesting part was that both my actual midwife that I booked with for my home birth, because that was, as I said, something that we chose as a family. She was on vacation, and the person that was her person that had to, the backup. She basically also was not there physically. She was attending a workshop somewhere else. Now, this was obviously something I didn't plan to do, but then comes 8 o'clock-ish around, and I'm like, oh, I'm losing fluid. This is not normal. I should just, connect with the midwives. My husband at this time was already a lot less calm than me, because he was like, girl, this looks like it's getting intense. But I was like, oh, it can happen. It's been happening this last 3 weeks. It's okay. And he's like, you should check in and tell me if this is now the time, because we have already another baby. She's not a baby anymore. She's a toddler now. And obviously we had to take care of her if this was now the day baby was born. And so he wanted to make sure that everything was prepared as well. So then I connected with Lucy. That's when I informed you on WhatsApp, which was a miracle that you actually had your phone on a Sunday. We finally reached you. I called you and I said, Lucy, I need to already breathe through the contractions. This is the real deal. Can you come? Now, do you remember? I mean, you knew that basically both my midwives are not around. So what went through your head?
In general, also maybe I'd like to talk about this. Like, you could actually reach me on a Sunday. I wasn't on call yet, because usually I'm on call for my families 2 weeks before the due date, and then until the baby is there. Yeah. So 3 weeks was a bit early, and therefore I actually prayed about that before, because I asked God to really guide these kind of situations. In general, being a doula, you never know when is birth going to happen. You can plan as much as you want to, but then in those situations, all that you can do is give it up into God's hands. That's all that you can do. And I was just really grateful that I looked on my work phone this morning, because usually I just do it after 12 a.m. But I had this impulse to do it, so I was just super grateful. And then when I arrived at your place, my thoughts were, okay, so I know that midwife A, she is not yet here. Midwife B is exactly. So I was like, how did we do that? But I just thought, so I've been working here in the region for a while, and I know a couple of midwives, also home birth midwives. So I just went through a list in my head. I was like, let's call or let's call her C, person C, and then let's call person D, and then person D actually said, you know what, I'm going to come, which was such a relief, because you were already planning about going to the hospital even, and my thought was just, I want you to have a home birth.
Yeah. And that's
because I knew that was in your heart.
Like, as I said, you're such a huge advocate for whatever the agreement was between you and the lady that you are accompanying, and you really went full force. You're like, okay, let's give it one more shot. I'm just going to call whoever I know who's in the region and who does home births. And you just did it without us even asking you, because as I said, I was already having contractions in the early stage of labor. My husband was incredible. He just took care of the little one and communication with everything else, so that I could just directly focus on my birth, and not my birth, but the birth of my baby. And that was just so helpful. So I just want to highlight that you also take initiative by yourself in, knowing what is best for baby and mom and everything around that, for the higher goods, let's say. I love that because we met, I think, physically only 2 times before the actual birth, which gave us also opportunity to meet after postpartum, actually, which was such a blessing. And I'm going to also share that in a little bit. But the 2 times that you came, one meeting was just between you and I, where we spoke about, you know, just generally like, where's my mind at? Where do I feel with this pregnancy? How do I feel the pregnancy? Maybe was there any trauma before this pregnancy? Is there any, you know, unresolved conflicts within the larger family as well that could erupt during the birth? Because birth is such a raw state of mind that a lot of times when we walk through life, you know, we try to cope with the things that we experience, and we're really good at that. But when we are in an environment that we've never been before, where also physical components are experienced differently, let's put it that way, into extremes, that's when all that stuff can erupt. And so I loved that you took care of also the psychological component as much as you can. Obviously, you're not a psychologist or a counselor, but you do take care of it. You do a lot of trauma-informed sessions, which I truly love because I'm a coach myself, so I love that stuff. And yeah, I just enjoyed that because I just want to say one more thing. So trauma, I looked up the definition before we actually hopped onto the call. Because some people might think that trauma is just something very radical, such as a physical, you know, rape or something like that, that causes something in your brain, but it's actually not. The actual definition of trauma is any type of distressing event or experience that can have an impact on a person's ability to cope and function. So it can be anything, actually, anything that overwhelms us in that moment, that makes us block, and, you know, is actually trauma. So there's also positive trauma in sense of, oh my word, I just gave birth to this beautiful human being, but the birth was not what I maybe expected. So that can also cause trauma in the process of just taking care of your mind after taking, you know, the steps of postpartum and stuff, which is what happened with me the first time. I had a beautiful pregnancy, as I said, and then the moment we went into the hospital, the heart rate of my daughter went down and things just took a turn. We didn't have much, you know, how can I say, much decision power in that moment, because we wanted her to be safe and we wanted her to be just here with us. So it came one after another, and it ended up with a cesarean and also her being in the NICU and away from me for a while, which then again was not so nice for me as a mom. And it took me actually a lot of time of her first year to really process that. Because I never went with that mindset into the hospital of actually going in for a cesarean, a C-section. And so that just did something with me, and I loved her to bits, but still I missed that connection that happens with natural birth. The second time I took it to God and I said, God, I want more kids. You know this, and I know in the perfect timing you will bring me more children, but I want to first have this first birth completely processed. And also I wanted the way you want me to give birth this time, and I want to completely rely on you. And so that's when the picture of home birth came in, and I did all the research possible on this whole thing. I did not go blind-eyed, you know, inside this huge endeavor, but I just want to tell you and also give you encouragement and speak into people that may have had a not so nice birth the first time, to really build their birth team and work with the people that are specialized in equipping you as a mom during these times, even if the second time around again will not be the way you expected it. You will have somebody to fall back to. You will have someone to talk to. I mentioned it earlier. I talked to Lucy also postpartum, not just before the birth and during the birth. She is there for one, even after birth. It's very similar to how the midwives work. They also check on you after. They don't just leave you. And, you know, just want to highlight one more thing. Obviously, this is a service that you pay a person to do. But for me, as I went out the first time of my hospital, with my first baby, I decided I'm going to hire a doula the second time just because I need a coach. That's what she is basically. She coaches you through the contractions and she goes with whatever is working for you.